Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Abe with MysticGenmara.com, and today it looks like everything's running. This is only my second live stream doing a multi-stream, so bear with me as I go crazy here for just a second. Making sure everything is active. Wow. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay, and I do apologize, but let's see here. Pull up my notes, because I'm not as good as some of these people yet. I still need my notes to keep me focused. So, tonight I was thinking a lot about what I wanted to discuss, and part of the reason that I was having a little bit of a tough time deciding what to say what to discuss is to have so many options to go from. If you've looked through the videos that I've already uploaded, there's quite the collection of commentary to look through there. And so I decided that I would go through some of my other notes, some of my other research, and pull from that. So tonight we are going to be discussing, and I have some tea here, so if you see me mute myself real quick, it's because I'm taking a drink. Tonight we're going to be discussing the concept of light language or soul song, depending on really how you learned it. Make sure I'm not boomering anything here just yet. I probably will, but we'll find out. So, light language and soul songs. It's a language that's beyond your conscious mind. It's the language of the heart and or the soul, depending on how you learned it and who you learned it from. It speaks to the deepest part of who you are, which is your soul, your DNA structure, your higher self. All of those things apply. My light's being weird. There. I don't like looking like I glow. In the past, some people have called it speaking in tongues, but in my experience, light language and soul songs are completely different from speaking in tongues. Light language and soul singing are more focused, more collected. Now, I will admit that this could be that as humanity is growing, expanding, and elevating, ascending into a higher state, that the language is really starting to become more coherent to our conscious mind. So there possibly could be some similarities there going by that. This can be considered to be communication with the highest aspect of who you are, your connection to Source, God, Divine Energy. There's a belief, and I've read this a couple of places over the last few years. I'll give my opinion afterwards, but the belief is that each species on this planet, off this planet, they all have their own version of light language. So like on our own planet, we have the elves, we have the fae, the fairy creatures, the dragons. Leaving our planet, we have the angelic hosts, and the star beings all have their own version of light language. My opinion on this is that they probably do. I'm not saying that they don't. But the beauty of talking in a way that is soul to soul versus mouth to mouth, like verbally speaking, or mouth to ear, sorry, is that the souls can understand languages beyond what you normally would assume. So even if you ended up speaking to an angel, you could speak your own version, and the angel's going to understand it at a soul level because their soul resonates to that language. Light language is usually spoken, but I've seen it written down, and other people have done the written version of it. There's even times when you feel like when you call it up, because it is a tool, that your body and your hands will start to move along with the words that are coming out, or the sounds, because sometimes it's singing, not so much verbal. And soul songs are almost, the singing of the soul is almost always sung. It's in a sing-song type of voice, it's very fluid, and it's really hard to understand in the beginning for some people. And I say some people because everyone wants to understand it in a different way. Like for me, when I first started having these experiences and starting to work with this tool, I wanted to understand what each and every sound meant. I wanted to understand what was coming through. Why was I not consciously aware of what it was? And the big thing about it is this type of communication doesn't work like that in the slightest. Just as a heads up. Each sound is speaking or in singing holds meaning for the unconscious, the subconscious mind or soul. Combined in a conversation, in a fluid state, in a singing state, this type of communication can transmit massive amounts of healing energy and unbelievable information in a pretty short session. In the written form, it can trigger emotions, it can trigger memories, and for some people, I haven't had this experience, but for some people I've talked to about this, seeing it in a written form, and it's very fluid. I didn't take any pictures, I'm sorry, but but when it's in a written form, it can trigger almost like a past life feelings if you have, that belief. And so it's really an intense learning energy, which is why it is so special and unique. Benefits of you working with this tool and this type of healing, just one second. And until I get a better mic, I don't want to go rattling my spoon in my teacup or coffee mug. Anyway, the benefits of using this type of healing include bypassing your conscious mind and your ego. So this is speaking to that deeper part of who you are. It allows your subconscious mind to work through, to process, and allows your soul to clear out the stuff that doesn't belong and allows you to heal. In group sessions that I've been in, not being the leader, of course, but just being involved, you can feel blockages release in a group session. It's really intense. And concepts that you're trying to learn or trying to understand, like if you're struggling, like there's a mental block, you just can't see it, the process of light language or soul song can actually help you pass through that blockage, and all of a sudden you start to understand it. It is unique when it happens because the feeling it's different than anything that I've experienced. And I've tried a lot of different types of healing modalities over the years. It vibrates and can clear the energy chakras within the body. It also can vibrate through your energy field, the layers of your physical form. And it can enhance ascension and stimulate your creative mind. So if you're really hitting those roadblocks, you're hitting those mental blocks, you're just kind of like stuck and you can't move beyond them, you think, because that's the key term to that, is your conscious mind is saying that you can't move beyond this point, or you can't grasp this concept because it's so much more elevated than where you're at. The conscious mind and the ego has some evil little tricks like that. But if you start to work with light language or with soul singing, you can actually help remove some of those blocks and help you bring in that higher frequency. And like I said, it's unique, and it's something that I will be bringing forward in processes over the next month because I've got a lot of space to fill. But the other part about working with light language and soul singing is it has a very unique ability to stimulate your creative mind. So it's not just about your spiritual growth, although that's a huge portion of it. It also works with just your in general creativity. It helps you understand, it helps you work with and step into a more creative state. Sometimes you have the mundane day-to-day projects in life. Working with this type of an energy and this type of a tool can actually help you trigger, expand, and activate a creative solution to things that are just kind of mundane and boring everyday stuff. Another thing that I've learned with this type of healing is working with your DNA strands and your DNA structure, and it can help repair. From my experience, and if you've had a different experience, please comment and let me know. But in my experience, this works with fixing and repairing what's already there. It doesn't so much work with activating, but I'm sure that in time we'll figure out how to make it activate too. There's one teacher that I actually like. She's really, really fun, and she does have a lot of she works with the Akashic Records a lot. She works with activating your DNA, and she uses light language in a lot of her work, and so there may be some down the road we might be developing more skills with cleaning and elevating the DNA system through light language and soul singing. And with everything that we've got going on in today's world, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of the EMFs and the toxins in your food, and I mean, there's a whole list of things you could run down. You can listen to Alex Jones to find out like how bad it can be. He usually looks at the worst case scenario, but with everything that we've got going on, learning to work with a tool like light language and soul singing can actually be extremely helpful, because the health benefits, I'm not a medical doctor, this is energetic health benefits, are pretty massive. And so the name light language is unique in its term. And there's a lot of theories as to why it's named that. One of the more common ones is that this language speaks at the frequency of sound that interacts directly with the photons of light. And so it can literally pass through the human form and affect us at a very basic level, because light works on a more energy vibration, and light language and soul singing work on a vibrational level. It's been said that this is the language of the rainbows. It contains the root of all languages. It's actually like a pure form of white light. White light contains all colors of the spectrum. Light language and soul singing contain all languages. In some mystic traditions, it's said that it's a perfect language. It confers all knowledge of a subject or of a belief. Whether or not that becomes conscious is how you process it. But the language itself can confer the information, and then it just kind of rests until you can bring it into the forefront. These traditions that believe like this believe that one could focus on an idea or concept, like that thing that you're having a blockage of, and really bring it into focus. Let's say you're trying to work with understanding one of the zodiac signs. Don't pick them all at the same time, it's too much. But work on one, and then you just kind of focus on, let's say you're working with the first of the signs, Aries, and you want to really understand, but for some reason you can't get past the fire energy. So you just focus on the Aries energy, and then you activate your light language or soul singing tool and allow the words, sounds, and images to come forth. What does happen, it will confer the deeper knowledge. It will help remove some of those blocks and allow you to actually understand the idea or the concept in a clearer way. Now, this may not happen instantaneously, it might be immediate. It all depends on you, and it all depends on where you are in your spiritual path. And that's the key part to this, is don't expect everything to just magically fix it. It might, but it might also help you understand why you're at the point you're at and help you to see the next steps. That's the key to pretty much every one of the mystic, metaphysical, whatever term you want to use, traditions, is that they all have paths and points that you have to grow through. And this one's no different. It'll help speed things up massively, because you're taking and setting aside the conscious mind and the ego so you can really get down to the meat and potatoes of the situation. But that being said, you still have to live your everyday life, and so it's going to process for each person a little bit differently. One of the fun ones in the different groups that I've read about, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart because this is something that I kind of am obsessed with, but the alchemists love symbols. They love secrets. They love being able to have this knowledge that you don't have. They're fun. But they believed that the soul singing and light language were a form of divine communication. This was a way for, in their mind, to contact directly the heart of the Creator and have them basically get a foot up. And so the ones who could speak light language or sing soul songs, at their time when the alchemists were the most mysterious back in before the 1600s, we'll just go that, they wouldn't talk about it. Even amongst the alchemists that were like quote unquote friendly with each other because they kept their secrets, they wouldn't reveal that they had this gift. They might reveal it to their students or their disciples, however term you want to use there. But they didn't talk about it really outside of it because in their mind, this was a very high-powered special gift. So this type of communication has been long revered. It goes back centuries, if not millennia. And that leads me to how I came to even know about this and to start to understand it, because it's been a few years that I've been working on understanding this. Excuse me. I've been busy today. I've got a show coming up this weekend, and so I've been trying to get everything set up and prepared because I have to set up tomorrow. So it's been interesting. About 16 or 17 years ago, I can't remember the exact date. I have a book in my storage unit somewhere that I actually got autographed by one of the teachers that were at it, so I could tell you the year in that case, but I don't have it with me. I went to a healing, psychic, alternative health fair. In the town that I was in at the time, they're all about not always following a doctor's protocol. They want Reiki, they want acupuncture, they want energy healing, they want oracle cards. This is kind of their obsession. And so they would bring in a variety of different speakers, healers, teachers. There's booths that you could go through to pick up everything from a small pendulum to some of the biggest crystals I've ever seen. And so you have this entire variety of people. And this event fluctuates in price. It kind of depends on who shows up. But this particular year, it was a 4-day event, which it ranges from 3 to 4 days. And I literally have met and seen at the more affordable level some of the most interesting people ever. You'll see the gypsy style, and I'm not saying that derogatory, I'm looking at the historical reference, where they're dressed in silk flowing pieces and bobs with the turban headdresses and the huge earrings and the, mist-filled crystal balls. And you'll see some of those people there. You'll see the everyday Reiki worker who's like in flip-flops and jeans. They're just fun to go to because you get to see this huge array of different people, and they all have their gimmick or their because sometimes it is a gimmick. You can tell when you walk up. You just get that vibe. These people are doing this for the fun of it, and that's fine. We all do that stuff. But I can't even remember everybody that I saw at this time. I know that there was a very interesting Buddhist. He had quite the story to tell, and I won't go too deep into that because I would like to actually cover his style of Buddhism eventually on the channel here. But he talked about how his dad and his mom were Buddhist, and he was American. They're from America, and he was pretty much like, I'm not doing that. Got tattoos, drank, carried on, kind of a little thug for a moment. But he had some really unique experiences that changed his perspective, and he was one of the first people in this event that I got to see. It was in the morning, so of course, you have the way they do their system is the morning are the less known people, the evenings are the really big people. And so he was, I mean, to me, he was super impressive just because he had an amazing story. He literally walked through a form of hell to get where he was at now, and it was amazing. Another one of the people that I met at this particular one is someone I've talked about in other book reviews. I just lost it. The Basic Kabbalah one, you can go check it out, by Rabbi Label Wolf. And I'd never met a Hasidic Jew. I didn't know what the term meant. I had no knowledge of what these people were before this event occurred. But I really liked the concept of Kabbalah. And so I saw there was a Kabbalah one. Obviously, I would go to it. And while I was there, I was sitting there. Didn't start for like a half an hour before I got there. I wanted a good seat, so I showed up a half an hour before. Like, they unlocked the doors and I was waiting for it. And so I ended up getting like second or third row from the front, so I had a really good view of this rabbi. I was all excited to meet this person. I didn't know what he looked like because there was no pictures in the program. So this guy comes in, this older gentleman, and he sits next to me and he's talking, and we had this amazing 20-minute conversation because as people filed in, I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was another patron. Come to find out, I actually got to sit and visit with the rabbi that taught the class for 20 minutes before everyone else showed up. It was amazing. And I highly recommend that book, which, like I said, it's one of the videos that I did in the book review section if you check that playlist. But the other one, and that was an afternoon one, because he was more well-known but not big name. But the one that evening, the one that I really wanted to see, was this man named Dr. Z. Gong Sha. He was a medically trained doctor who is also trained in a list of alternative healing modalities and martial arts. His master, and I do not remember his name, I should have written that down, trained him in alternative energy type work therapy. And it was through this process that he developed and came to this term soul singing. And it was the very first time I'd heard of it. And apparently in his medical community, it's become quite large. And when you see the following he has now, it's extensive. It's amazing. But he explained the term soul song, and didn't use the term light language, although he did say that sometimes when it manifests, it will not come out as a song, it'll come out in phrases or sounds. But the way he did it was so fascinating that I pretty much understood it immediately, which was, for me, unique, because usually it takes me a little bit to get some of these concepts, especially back at that time, because I was struggling to be more open to learning and trying to figure some of this stuff out. He had a 90-minute session that day, which wasn't a lot, but it was enough to give you a really good burst of what it was he was doing. And in that process, he also did a soul song healing, and it was intense. Of course, it was the teacher of the lineage, so I mean, you're going to get a little bit different of an energy there. But the next day, or 2 days after, I can't remember if it was the next day, that was a really busy weekend, because there literally was time for me to grab a lunch and go to the next speaker or workshop, and it was like a 4-day event. So yeah, there was a lot going on. So anyway, in the next day or two after that, 2 of his top students decided or had scheduled a workshop, and I was one of the first people in line. There was like 10 of us when I showed up. There was a group of 10 of us that were waiting for that door to open, because this was at a big resort town, so there was a lot of places you could go, but we were waiting for this one. There was an exercise that he developed, Dr. and Master Z. Gong Sha, that helped develop and activate the unique song of your soul, not my soul, your soul. And at that time, he'd only had a couple of books out. I think he's got 30-ish out now, and I've read a significant amount of them. And each one I get different information from. They're very informative. They're very Taoist, they're very Eastern, but they're And in my mind, they're worth it to help you understand your healing gifts a little bit more and help work with your own energy field. And when we walked in, they had the books by the back door. If you've ever been to one of these events, that's where they always are. And so, of course, you grab the grab the ones you're led to, and I grabbed, I think, 2 or 3 that day. And they are actually still in print. Some of them are getting a little harder to find, and they're linked in the description. If you're looking to just pick up one book to really focus on and learn it, I would say the Soul, Mind, Body, Medicine book or Divine Soul Songs. Those are the 2 that really work with this energy and help you trigger your soul song, the voice of your soul. Soul communication is a way to help understand it. You'll still learn the basic tools, but it's a way to help understand a deeper meaning behind it, which is fascinating. Like I said, he's got a ton of books, but those are the 3 that I would recommend if you're trying to wake up your soul song or start to get into this and you want to know a little bit more. Soul, Mind, Body, Communication, I had to make sure the title, also works with healing your energy centers, like in the Reiki and Qigong type work and Tai Chi and acupuncture. It helps to work with the different energy centers in your body and help bring stuff into balance and realign it. So that's a really good one for overall body, but it also works with the soul as well. And if they don't show up, because I'm still new to this whole streaming thing, if they don't show up when I double check the videos after this is over, I'll post them in the comment section so you can at least find those the books if you are interested in them. But during this 2-hour or so workshop, it was a long workshop is what it felt like. So you learned a lot, and it felt like we were there for a long time, but it wasn't long enough. It was one of those situations. There was about 50 or so of us in the room, and we learned this technique, and it's his technique, so I'm not going to give it to you. Mainly because, and I'm sure he wouldn't care, but it's, to me, go to the master to learn these things, for this particular one anyway. But the 2 teachers that he'd left with to do this class, they taught us this technique. We practiced it, and it was absolutely ear-piercing the first few times we tried, and we experimented, and we failed, and they'd talk a little bit more, and they would work with their soul song to help us, elevate to that point. And finally, after, I don't know, probably a good half an hour, 45 minutes of listening to us screech, because it was painful at the beginning, towards the end of the day, you could start hearing people's soul songs start to wake up. And the room started to fill with sound as we continued to process and activate, and he had a specific chant that he wanted you to work with as you were trying to wake it up. And after a little while, almost everybody had kicked over to that. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a redneck, so I use different terms. Sounds coming out of each one of us were different. The overall room's noise, if you want to call it that, was extremely harmonious. And as we practiced and as we kept going with it, you started to feel alive. The whole room was just charged with this unbelievable energy. It felt so healing and so relaxing. And basically we went for, like I said, it was just over 2 hours or something, and it took that long in a group session where we were working basically with each other to start to wake everything up. And they taught us this technique. We practiced it. Not sure what just happened there, sorry. I have too many windows open. Let's close some of this stuff. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I was double checking a stream and forgot I left it open. So after we went through this class, it woke up. And then I noticed that I could find myself humming it and starting to sing it randomly, mainly when I was alone, just because it was kind of, you almost felt embarrassed, like, oh, I don't want anyone to know I'm doing this. But once you start to understand it and get into it, it's a lot of fun, and you do learn and sense and feel things differently, which is huge. So if you want to work and try to develop this yourself, which I highly recommend if you have the chance, just because it's a lot of fun, you can go through classes and activations to help wake up your light language and your soul song. Or you can try to wake it up yourself. The books I've linked below are ones that have practices in them to help you wake up your soul song, and the Soul Mind Body Medicine one is probably the best one, because he walks you through the different energy fields and energy aspects of your body, like your kidneys, your lower dantian, your middle dantian, your upper dantian, your third eye, and different other energy fields, your liver, your kidneys. It's all these different spots that are very important in Taoist medicine. And once you start to work with these different energies and you start to clear stuff out and realign and basically fix our internally crossed wires and get your meridians flowing cleanly again, it really does wake up those your soul song faster. And so like I said, I highly recommend that book, just because you learn a lot more on how to build, expand, and grow with that energy field. And as you go along, and this is something, and I say this in every video, and I'll probably continue to say it in every video, because this is how I kept records of everything that I've done. For the last 20 or so years, I have journals. They don't have to be fancy. I buy, it's usually sitting beside me. I buy the 5 subject 180-page dividers. I've got probably 6 of those things right now that are my overall journals. And then I've got specific journals that are set up for different courses I've taken, or different books, different areas of study. And the reason is I can go back and look up, like, where was that one thing? It was done by this author. Well, I had a journal for that series, so I can go back and I can find it. And I recommend that to everybody, especially when you're starting out, so that you can document how far you've come. And as you get these little insights, these little bursts of knowledge, you can take notes on it so that you'll remember it later. And doing so is a way to help understand your body more. And as you do that, you'll start to develop a little bit more, you'll develop understanding for other people. You'll develop compassion, which is huge. And the other part about it is you'll understand how you develop better. Sometimes you're going to wake up to these different healing modalities, your soul song, your light language, it doesn't matter which other one. Sometimes you'll wake up to it quickly, and some of you are going to take time. And it's all dependent on where you're at. Like in the workshop that we were in, almost all of us woke up the song that day. But we were in a group, we had teachers working with our energy, helped us understand how to say the words right, because some of the words they're Manchurian Chinese, so some of the words are a little tricky. And that's the reason the books are nice, because they actually spell out the words in English, American English vernacular, so you can understand the grammar behind them, or the phonetics, not grammar. But having the teacher there in front of you is a way to help understand those words better. And once you started getting the words down and the pattern down, then you could start to really develop this. And that does make it easier, but it's not necessary. And that's the one thing that Dr. and Master Sha say in a lot of his work, is that you don't have to have the teacher. If you have the words and you have the basic movements, like I said from the one book, it makes it easier to understand. It makes it easier to move forward. It makes it easier to develop. But you have to start somewhere. That's the reason I say have a journal. Because he started us in the group. But to really activate, develop, and learn how to work with it, I did a lot of my own study. I have notes in multiple journals because I kept practicing it for years. And it's a lot of fun. A big thing to understand in the beginning, and this is something to remember, everyone's soul song, everyone's light language is going to activate in a way that is best and most appropriate for you as a person. It may come out speaking, it may come out writing, it may develop through dance, through hand movements, or it may come out in a full-blown singing voice. Mine personally has always manifested, when I work with it and call it forward, in a sing-songy type voice. It always comes through that way. To be brutally honest with you, I can't get it to come through in a speaking tone. It always comes out singing. Could be the fact that I like music and I'm always humming something anyway, but that's how it developed in the beginning, and that's how it continues to work for me. So, and generally I use it when I'm starting out on a new course of study. If I'm trying a new job and I'm struggling with something, that's when I work with it more. I use it a lot anyway, but that is something that helps me understand myself better. And recently, and that's why I'm talking about this here, I've talked about it in my group on Facebook, I've started being led to work with this as a more active healing tool. And it's unique. Not everyone's going to be comfortable with it. And so that's something that you always want to double check with your client or your patient or the person in your group, is if they're okay if that comes forward, because you do have some control over it. Like, you can stop it from bursting forward, or you can call it up. And once you start practicing more, it becomes easier to work with and call it forward when you need it. But like I said, not everyone's okay with it. Some people get really weirded out by it. So make sure that when you do it, you're in a situation where they're okay with it. It's just like when you're working with acupuncture or acupressure. You don't walk in, push the person down, and start sticking needles into them. You talk to them, you work them through it, you let them know what you're doing, each step that you're of the process. Same thing applies here. So, just one second. So, the one thing that I will say is I probably am not going to do any soul singing tonight, just due to time constraints for me. I have a big day ahead of me tomorrow, so I'm not going to stay up too much longer here. But if you are interested to see a way that you can use soul singing or light language in a healing session, like in a modality, mixing it in with what you already have, or if you haven't started, this is a way to work with it. I have a video coming out tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. I'll have to double check the date. Could be the Friday the 9th, or it could be Saturday the 10th. And it is a cord cutting to aid in forgiveness and releasing the past. And with this, as I've said in a previous stream, or a video, when I talk about cord cutting, it is a way to aid you in releasing the energy. It's not going to solve the problem. It's going to pave a clearer path for you to work through the situation. So, I worked at cord cutting, and I went through the process of working with my angel guides, working with different crystal energies, and then in the middle of it, I brought forward soul songs specifically for releasing and forgiveness of a specific issue. So whatever issue you want to work on that time, you can try it with that. And this is one way that you can use soul singing and light language. It can come through in short bursts, single sounds. There's one teacher that I watch every so often, and with her it comes out in usually 5 to 15 sounds in a row, or it will be a significant period, almost like you're having conversation. With mine, it goes until it stops. Once I get going on something, like if I'm working like with this one, it just kind of flows out. And it's going to be different every time, so it's not something you're going to be able to say, well, it was different this time, and it was the same type. it's going to work with whatever energy is coming forward at that moment around, pretty much around me and around the person I'm working with. It can be really short, it can be really long. The key with this, and this is over time of practicing with it and experiencing with it, as long as the client you're working with is comfortable and feeling safe, allow that process to work and flow. Allow it to move forward for you, so that as you're working, your soul, your mind, your spirit are all in alignment with the divine, and it allows this healing to process for yourself and for the other person, allowing them to understand that sensation and that healing at a deeper level. So let me double check something real quick, just because I'm weird and I like to know what I've got going on. Okay. But with that, like I said, it's really important to remember to be gentle with yourself when you're learning any form of healing modality, when you're working with any form of healing energy with someone else. The thing with all of them, and light language and soul singing is the same. It may come out and you may feel a really big burst of energy occur, but you've also been tuned into it, you're more sensitive to it. The person you're working with or the client you're working on may feel nothing at that time. The one thing with energy work is it may not show up actively for your client in that moment. Sometimes it will. Sometimes you're going to see some pretty cool stuff happening. But the other part about it is if you don't, it's okay. Because this process can take time. Working with soul song and light language, you can hear it now. You may get the goosebumps and you'll feel that energy. And then that night, you'll have an experience. You'll have a dream. You'll start to feel like the situation is resolving itself, like it's healing. These are all big components in this type of work. It's not something, like I've said before, you're not just going to wake up one day and be like, I'm going to do this and it's going to fix all my problems. Good luck. Because everything takes time. You came into this world with certain expectations. The family you were born into, the relationships you've had, the friendships, the people who've passed over, all of it has been an experience that you requested when you came in. Working with these different energy tools, when you find this video, find this live stream, however it comes forward for you, you're finding it at the time you're supposed to find it. And you're learning about something new. You're learning about something different. Understand, you're learning them in the time when you're most apt to learn them. Like for me, it was 16, 17 years ago. I don't even remember the right date anymore. But I was in a process of waking up to the spiritual world. I was in a process of waking up to energy healing. I was in a process of waking up to the fact that not everything in my life was the way I thought it was. That doesn't mean it was wrong. It doesn't mean it was right. It was just my experience didn't line up with the life that I was born into. Now I am where I am. I can look back and I can see I had these experiences. I had these struggles. I was born into this type of a family. I went through these different processes, these ups, these downs, working with depression and all the rest of that stuff through my entire life, bringing me to a point where I could understand when the soul song came up as a subject, that it was something I had to learn, and it's helped me immensely in my personal path. And now I'm trying to introduce it to other people because I feel like it's super important. And this, again, is something that we all go through. So to keep me from rambling and just going off, it doesn't look like I have any chats at the moment, and that's cool. I will cut this stream off here, and if you guys are interested, there are links in the description, and if by some chance I boomered that, I'll put them in the comment section and then pin the comment so you can find it. I appreciate you all for coming up and watching the video, And like I said, the month of December, I'm going to be dropping a video or a live stream every single day. So, and if I happen to skip one due to weather, because that is a possibility this weekend, we're expecting snow, and that has a weird effect on my internet. So if by chance something hiccups and I don't get one uploaded at the time, I will do double up on another day. But I want to dedicate this month to doing one a day, just kind of build that discipline back up. So keep checking back, and if you have any questions or comments, just drop them in the stream. If you have suggestions for future videos, you can drop them underneath any of the videos. I will check that and go with any suggestions that come up. Like I said, check over the weekend and see. I've got a soul song healing that is going to be loaded up one of those 2 days, and another discussion. So I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for showing up.